It was a quiet morning on Earth. The sun had just started to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Most people were still asleep, unaware that something extraordinary was happening far above them in the cold silence of space. Inside a huge building in the mountains of Alaska, a group of scientists and communication officers worked at the Deep Space Monitoring Center. Their job was to listen for any strange signals coming from beyond Earth. Usually, they only picked up radio noise or broken transmissions from satellites. But that day, something unusual appeared on their screens. A faint, repeating signal that didn't match anything they had ever seen. At first, the team thought it was an error. One of the operators adjusted the frequency, trying to clear the static. But the message kept repeating, growing clearer each time. A young technician named Alan leaned closer to his console, his heart beating faster as he listened. Among the bursts of static, he could hear a human voice, terrified, urgent, and broken by interference. The voice was saying something over and over again. Alan froze when he realized what the message said. "They're coming. Help us." His supervisor quickly rushed to his side, demanding to know where the signal came from. When they traced the source, everyone in the room went silent. The coordinates pointed to a distant human colony, one of the newest and farthest settlements in the outer rim of known space. The colony, called Vega 7, was home to over 60,000 people, scientists, engineers, miners, and families who had left Earth to build a new future. They were completely self-sufficient, connected to Earth only by long-range communication relays. Nothing dangerous had ever happened there before. The last official report from Vega 7, just 3 days earlier, said everything was normal, so how could they suddenly be sending a distress signal? The scientists sent the recording to Earth's Global Communication Command in Geneva. Within an hour, the message had reached the United Nations Defense Council. The council members, representing every major nation on Earth, gathered urgently in a closed meeting. Some were still half asleep. Others came rushing from their homes, faces pale and tense. The situation room filled with quiet whispers as the message played on the main screen. "They're coming! Help us!" The voice cracked with fear, then silence, followed by the same words again. Everyone felt the same chill down their spine. Who were they? For a moment, no one spoke. Then General Marcus Hale, the head of the Global Defense Command, stood up. He was a tall, gray-haired man with decades of military experience. "We need to verify this," he said firmly. "It could be interference or a hoax." But the scientists from the monitoring center quickly explained that the signal's origin and data pattern were real. It came directly from Vega 7's emergency beacon, a system that could only activate if the colony's main communication hub was destroyed or manually triggered in crisis mode. That meant something catastrophic had happened. News of the signal spread quietly among high-level officials, though it hadn't yet reached the public. Earth's governments didn't want panic. They ordered all deep space channels to be scanned for further communication. But hours passed and no new message came. Vega 7 had gone completely silent. The United Nations Defense Council ordered reconnaissance satellites to focus on the Vega system, but the distance was vast, light years away, and it would take time for images to return. Every hour that passed increased the fear that the colony might be gone. Inside the command room, the air was heavy. Technicians worked tirelessly, scanning for any trace of life. Analysts tried to decode hidden parts of the transmission, hoping to learn what they meant. Some words were faintly audible beneath the static, screams, explosions, and a sound like roaring metal. One part of the message seemed to contain a child crying before the signal cut out. That was when the mood in the room shifted from confusion to dread. This wasn't just a malfunction. This was a cry for help, maybe the last one Vega 7 would ever send. Far from Earth, on the edge of human space, Vega 7 had been a proud symbol of unity. People from every country had worked there to mine rare minerals and study new worlds. It was peaceful, a place where humans proved they could survive beyond their home planet. Now it seemed that peace had been shattered. The scientists who had friends and family on Vega 7 couldn't stop shaking. One of them whispered, "My brother is there," and left the room, tears in her eyes. Others sat in silence, staring at the blinking red light on the screen, the signal still repeating, growing weaker with every loop. Meanwhile, in cities across Earth, a strange tension began to spread. Rumors leaked through online forums and independent media channels. People started asking questions. Did something happen to one of the colonies? Why are military satellites changing orbit?
What are they hiding?
Governments tried to calm the situation, saying only that a technical disturbance had occurred. But ordinary citizens could sense that something was wrong. When people looked at the stars that night, many felt a strange fear, a sense that they were not alone. Back in Geneva, the Council finally made a decision. They would send a deep space probe to investigate Vega 7. The probe, equipped with powerful sensors and long-range cameras, was launched from Earth's orbit. It would take several days to reach the colony, but it was humanity's best chance to find out the truth. General Hale ordered all military fleets to go on silent alert. Not a public mobilization, but enough to prepare in case the situation was worse than expected. He knew that if Vega 7 had been attacked, it would mean war, a kind of war humanity had never faced before. That night, the SOS signal suddenly stopped. No one knew why. The last transmission was short and broken, just static and a faint whisper. It's too late. The sound chilled everyone who heard it. Some scientists played it over and over, trying to clean the audio, but the result was always the same. The signal had ended, and with it, perhaps, 60,000 human lives. Days later, as Earth waited for data from the probe, strange readings began to appear on defense satellites. Faint energy bursts near the outer edges of the solar system. They were weak but growing stronger, as if something was moving closer. The analysts compared them with old records but found no match. It wasn't an asteroid or a natural phenomenon. It was organized, rhythmic, like ships moving in formation. The thought terrified them. Could they already be coming? General Hale ordered all findings to remain classified until proof arrived. But deep down, everyone in that room already knew what it meant. Humanity had just received its first warning. The SOS wasn't only a cry for help. It was a sign that something powerful, something unknown was approaching. On Earth, life continued as normal. Children went to school, people went to work, and traffic filled the streets. But in secret, the leaders of the world were preparing for something no generation had ever faced. Somewhere beyond the stars, an entire colony had fallen silent, and the message it left behind, just a few desperate words, was about to change human history forever. In the days that followed the disappearance of Vega 7, Earth was covered in a cloud of fear and confusion. Inside secret military bases, people were working day and night to understand what had happened. Satellites were still trying to send back images of the colony. But the distance was too great and the data too weak. Everyone was waiting, and every hour that passed made the silence heavier. The United Nations Defense Council kept holding emergency meetings, but no one had any real answers. What they had was a mystery, and it was quickly turning into a nightmare. Then, almost a week after the SOS message stopped, the first clear pictures from the probe finally reached Earth. The images came in slowly, line by line across huge screens inside the Global Defense Command Room. At first, there was nothing unusual, just the gray surface of Vega 7, the mining fields, and the mountains in the background. But as the next set of images appeared, the room fell silent. The colony was gone. Entire cities were reduced to black craters. The mining sites looked like they had been melted by unimaginable heat. The landing ports were full of wrecked ships, twisted and burned. What shocked everyone most was that there were no bodies, no life signs at all, only destruction. The analysts zoomed in on the largest crater near the central dome. There, buried under the dust, was what looked like a huge piece of metal, smooth and shining even in the darkness. It wasn't from any human ship. The engineers compared its structure to everything in their database, but the material was completely unknown. That was the moment Earth's leaders realized something terrifying. Vega 7 hadn't just been destroyed. It had been attacked by something far more advanced than anything humans had ever built. The president of the Global Council demanded a full investigation. Scientists, military experts, and intelligence officers from every nation were called together in one place. The atmosphere was tense. People whispered about aliens, about old legends, about secret space projects, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Finally, General Hale stood before them and said, "This is not a natural disaster. Someone did this." His voice echoed through the room. And whoever they are still out there. Behind closed doors, secret reports began to surface. For years, some agencies had been tracking unexplained signals in deep space, patterns of movement that didn't belong to asteroids or comets. Until now, those reports had been ignored, dismissed as technical errors. But now they seemed to connect perfectly with Vega 7's location. Maybe the colony had seen something it wasn't supposed to. Maybe that's why it was destroyed. The truth was darker than anyone had imagined. Hidden deep inside government archives, there were records of small space probes lost near that same region of space decades earlier. They had disappeared without a trace, and the data around their last positions looked eerily similar to what was happening now. For the first time, scientists began to consider the possibility that Earth was not alone, and that whoever shared the galaxy with them might not be friendly. While the world's top officials worked in secret, rumors began to spread again. Leaked photos from Vega 7 started appearing online, pictures of burned landscapes and strange metal debris. The media tried to explain it as a mining accident, but no one believed that anymore. People demanded to know the truth. Fear started to grow across the planet. Some religious groups claimed this was a punishment from the heavens. Others believed it was proof that alien civilizations had been watching humanity for centuries. Whatever the reason, one thing was clear. Earth could not hide from this forever. Inside the Global Council, the leaders knew they had to act fast. The scientists warned that if the attackers were capable of reaching Vega 7, then they could reach Earth too. But humanity was divided. Each country had its own defense systems, its own fleets, and its own political goals. For years, nations had competed rather than cooperated. Now they had to decide whether to share their most guarded secrets for the sake of survival. Many didn't want to. But then the probe sent one final image before going offline, an image that changed everything. It showed a dark shadow passing in front of the colony's broken remains. It was shaped like a massive ship, hundreds of times larger than anything built by humans. The moment the image arrived, the probe's signal was cut off. Scientists confirmed it wasn't a glitch. The probe had been destroyed. That was enough to convince even the most skeptical leaders. Earth was facing something it didn't understand. The Global Council declared a state of planetary emergency. Every military base around the world received silent activation orders. Fleets that had been in storage for decades were powered up. Classified programs buried under the oceans and hidden inside asteroids were reopened. The world began to prepare for something it had never prepared for before, a war beyond Earth. Still, there were voices of doubt. Some world leaders argued that it might not be an enemy at all, that maybe the colony had triggered something by mistake. Others feared that revealing the truth would cause panic and destroy what was left of global order. But the generals and scientists knew it was already too late to hide. The signals from deep space were growing stronger. Something was moving out there, and it was heading toward human space. Meanwhile, people on Earth could feel the tension even if they didn't understand it. Strange movements of military ships were seen at night. Unusual radio silence covered certain regions. Families of soldiers began receiving short, cryptic messages, "Be ready to evacuate if needed." In news broadcasts, the politicians smiled and said everything was fine. But their eyes told another story. In secret laboratories, engineers were ordered to work without rest. They reopened old defense projects that had been shut down for being too dangerous or too powerful. Huge hangars that hadn't seen daylight in years were filled with experimental weapons, massive orbital lasers, stealth drones, and prototype star cruisers that had been designed for testing but never deployed. Scientists who had dreamed of exploring space peacefully were now building machines of war. The leaders of Earth began to hold meetings through secure holographic channels. They argued, shouted, and blamed each other for being unprepared. But amid the chaos, one voice brought them together: the secretary of the Global Council, an older woman named Dr. Liara Chen. She spoke calmly but firmly. "We may not have believed in this threat before," she said, "but we believe now. We cannot undo what happened to Vega 7, but we can make sure it never happens again. We must stand together." Her words became the turning point. For the first time in human history, all nations agreed to share their intelligence and technology. The dream of a united Earth, something that once seemed impossible, was becoming real, born from fear and loss. But unity didn't come without a cost. As military production accelerated, ordinary people started feeling the consequences. Cities began rationing power. Resources were redirected to build new fleets. Factories worked day and night under strict secrecy. The world economy began to strain, but the people didn't complain. They wanted to believe that Earth was doing something to protect them. In the middle of all this, a small group of hackers managed to intercept fragments of the original Vega 7 transmission. They decoded parts that had been hidden under layers of encryption. In one segment, a woman's voice screamed, "They're not human!" before the line was cut. When that audio clip leaked online, panic exploded everywhere. Governments tried to remove it, but it was too late. The world now believed the impossible. Across every continent, people watched the night sky differently. Fear mixed with wonder. Children asked their parents if monsters were coming. Scientists appeared on talk shows trying to calm everyone, saying there was no confirmed alien life. But no one truly felt safe anymore. Back in the Global Defense Command, General Hale stared at the massive screen showing Earth's orbit. He knew that the probe's last images meant something bigger was approaching. He looked around at his team and said quietly, "We can't wait for them to attack first. We need to show them what humanity is capable of." His words were the spark that lit a new mission. A mission that would push Earth to reveal its hidden strength. The SOS from Vega 7 had started as a cry for help, but now it had become a warning that united the planet. Behind the scenes, blueprints for massive fleets, orbital weapons, and secret bases were coming to life. Engineers whispered about something called Project Aegis, a defense initiative that had existed only as a rumor. No one knew exactly what it was, but everyone felt that it would soon become the shield that stood between humanity and whatever was coming from the darkness beyond the stars. The first sign of the enemy came quietly, almost unnoticed. Deep space radars picked up strange energy readings far beyond the moon's orbit. They looked like shadows moving slowly toward human space. At first, scientists thought they were just debris or sensor errors. But when the signals began to form organized patterns, it became clear these were not random. They were ships, dozens of them moving in formation, completely silent. The images were blurry, but they showed dark metallic shapes unlike any human design. The room full of defense analysts fell into stunned silence. The unseen enemy that had destroyed Vega 7 was now approaching Earth's region of space. General Hale ordered every telescope, satellite, and probe to focus on those signals. The data that came back made everyone's blood run cold. The ships were enormous, some over 2 kilometers long, moving at speeds faster than anything humanity could achieve. But what was more terrifying was their pattern. They weren't heading directly for Earth. They were stopping at smaller human outposts along the way, and one by one those stations went dark. The same SOS code appeared briefly before disappearing forever. "They're coming. Help us." Earth could no longer deny what was happening. The Global Council ordered total secrecy, but rumors spread fast. Small colonies began evacuating. Cargo ships turned back mid-flight. Spaceports became chaotic as people begged for a way off-world. The fear of the unknown enemy grew by the hour. Meanwhile, inside the Global Defense Command, preparations were reaching their final phase. Project Aegis, the secret defense program, was being activated. For years, Project Aegis had been a myth whispered among military circles, a network of hidden weapons, stealth fleets, and experimental technology meant for the ultimate defense of humanity. Only a handful of people knew it truly existed. Now, for the first time, it was being revealed to the full military command. Massive hangar doors opened beneath the oceans, in deserts and under mountains, releasing starships that had been built in secret decades earlier. Scientists who had once worked on theoretical propulsion systems were called back into service. Factories across the world began producing energy cores, plasma cannons, and shield generators. As the fleets powered up, the scientists kept analyzing the enemy transmissions. They had recorded faint bursts of sound from the destroyed colonies, not words but patterns. When decoded, they resembled mathematical sequences, complex and deliberate. These weren't wild creatures attacking blindly. Whoever these beings were, they had intelligence, strategy, and terrifying precision. But they never responded to any of Earth's attempts to communicate. Every message sent into the void was met with silence. Then the first human scouting fleet, led by Commander Riley Grant, was sent to investigate one of the destroyed colonies near Vega 9. The fleet consisted of 5 battle cruisers and several drones. They traveled in stealth mode, avoiding detection. For 3 days, everything was calm. Then suddenly, all contact was lost. Only one drone made it back, its recordings partially corrupted. The footage it carried shook everyone who saw it. The video showed the ruins of Vega 9, cities burning, ships torn apart in space. Then the camera turned and captured something in the distance. massive black ships floating silently above the planet. Their surface shimmered like liquid metal. And then from their sides, small dart-shaped objects began to detach, thousands of them. They moved fast, too fast for human eyes to follow. The feed ended there, cut by static and an explosion. The analysts slowed the footage down frame by frame and noticed something horrifying. Those dart-shaped crafts weren't missiles. They were living machines, half metal, half organic, moving as if they were alive. The discovery terrified Earth's scientists. These enemies weren't just using machines. They were machines fused with biology. They called them biomechanical entities, capable of repairing themselves, adapting, and learning from battle. This made them nearly unstoppable. The Global Council met in silence, realizing that humanity was fighting not just a fleet, but a form of intelligence built for war. General Hale stood before the council, his voice firm, but heavy. "They won't stop," he said. "We either stand together now or there won't be an Earth left to defend." The room agreed. From that moment, Earth declared full mobilization. All nations united their armies and navies under a single command, the United Earth Fleet. Thousands of soldiers, engineers, and pilots volunteered. People who had never worked together before now stood side by side, driven by one purpose: survival. As the fleets gathered in orbit, the first major battle was drawing closer. Probes reported that the enemy ships were less than a week away from human space. The skies above Earth shimmered with the glow of engines as ships launched one after another, filling the darkness with light. Families gathered to watch from below, their hearts heavy with pride and fear. Some whispered prayers, others saluted, knowing that many of those ships might never return. In the control room, Commander Riley's replacement, Captain Elena Ruiz, studied the holographic display of the enemy formation. "They don't move like us," she said quietly. "It's like they already know what we'll do before we even decide." She was right. The biomechanical fleet used tactics that defied logic. They moved in perfect coordination without any visible communication signals. It was as if they shared one mind. As the United Earth Fleet prepared for battle, the scientists tried one last desperate experiment, sending a signal in the same pattern the enemies used. It was a risky attempt to communicate. The message was simple: "We are human. We mean no harm." For 2 days there was no answer. Then, on the third day, Earth's deep space sensors picked up a reply. It wasn't words, just a signal of pure static followed by an image. When decoded, the image showed a symbol, a circle surrounded by 7 smaller ones, and beneath it, a single phrase in digital form: "Consume the weak." The message sent a wave of horror across the command centers. The enemy wasn't here to talk. They were here to destroy. That was the moment when the Global Council gave the final order: "Prepare all forces. Earth will fight." Soon after, the first wave of the enemy fleet entered human space. The dark ships appeared on every radar, surrounding the outpost near the Mars frontier. Earth's forces responded immediately. The battle was short and brutal. Laser cannons, missiles, and plasma bursts lit up the void. But the enemy's ships moved with frightening precision, dodging attacks as if predicting every move. When one of their vessels was hit, it melted and reformed within seconds. Humanity's weapons seemed almost useless. However, Earth's commanders noticed something important. The biomechanical ships were powerful but not invincible. When concentrated fire hit their core structures, they exploded violently. Using that weakness, human fleets began adjusting tactics. They fought fiercely, sacrificing smaller ships to protect the main carriers. The first victory was small but symbolic. One of the enemy ships was destroyed near the orbit of Jupiter. The explosion was so bright it was visible from Earth through telescopes. It gave humanity hope, but that hope came with a terrible price. Out of 200 human ships, only 50 survived the first battle. Thousands of soldiers were lost. Still, the survivors didn't back down. They gathered their strength and prepared for the next wave. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the scientist made another chilling discovery. The biomechanical remains collected after the battle contained traces of human DNA. Somehow, these creatures had used biological material from destroyed colonies to rebuild themselves. They weren't just machines. They were evolving from humanity itself. It meant that every colony that fell only made the enemy stronger. This realization pushed Project Aegis into its final phase. The project's secret weapon, a massive orbital defense grid powered by an artificial intelligence named Argus, was activated. Argus could analyze battle data in real time and predict enemy movements with near-perfect accuracy. It became humanity's greatest advantage. For the first time, they could fight back with strategy, not just fear. Still, the enemy was advancing. Every day, new reports came in. Colonies gone, fleets destroyed, and communication lines lost. The pressure was unbearable. But through it all, one message kept humanity united. For Vega 7, for the fallen. Those words became a battle cry that echoed through every ship and every soldier's heart. As the enemy drew closer to Earth's defense perimeter, the night sky began to glow with the fire of engines and explosions. Humanity stood on the edge of extinction, but it refused to kneel. The unseen enemy had shown its face, cold, merciless, and powerful, but Earth was no longer the same. It was ready to fight back, and for the first time in history, the entire planet stood as one. The day the enemy reached Earth's defense perimeter, the world held its breath. For years, humans had dreamed of exploring the stars peacefully, but that dream ended the moment Vega 7 sent its SOS. Now the threat was no longer distant. It was real, massive, and closing in fast. From orbit, the United Earth Fleet could see the first wave of dark biomechanical ships moving with uncanny precision, their surfaces gleaming black against the void of space. The enemy had learned from every previous encounter, adapting, evolving, and now it was fully prepared to strike Earth itself. General Hale stood in the command center, surrounded by the highest-ranking officers from every nation. Holographic displays lit up the room with tactical data, showing enemy movements, projected battle trajectories, and estimated casualties. "This is it," he said, his voice steady but heavy with urgency. "We fight together or we fall alone. Every system online, every weapon ready. This is humanity's moment." His words echoed across the room, creating a tense silence before a wave of determination swept over the commanders. The United Earth Fleet had never been seen before by the public. Massive star carriers hidden in secret spaceports for decades were now fully operational. They carried fleets of smaller fighter ships, plasma cannons, and prototype orbital missiles. Huge orbital defense rings, which had been under construction around Earth for years, now glowed with energy as they powered up. These were weapons so advanced that most people on Earth had never imagined their existence. The fleet's appearance was terrifying, awe-inspiring, and magnificent all at once. The first clash began just beyond the moon's orbit. Enemy scouts darted toward the defense lines, fast and relentless. Human fighters launched in swarms, weaving through the dark, metallic shapes that moved as if controlled by one mind. The first few skirmishes were intense. Biomechanical darts tore through the human ranks, but the fighters, guided by artificial intelligence systems developed under Project Aegis, struck back with precision. Every successful hit destroyed a portion of the enemy, but for every ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to appear. The enemy's ability to adapt in real time was unlike anything humans had encountered. On board the flagship Horizon, Captain Elena Ruiz coordinated the defense. Her voice was calm, but every word carried authority. "Focus fire on their cores. Target their central structures. Keep the perimeter intact." Pilots responded immediately, trusting the commands and their training. The fight was brutal. Energy beams sliced through space, explosions lit up the void, and debris from destroyed ships tumbled like stars falling in slow motion. From Earth, the light of these battles was visible in telescopes, a reminder to everyone below that humanity was fighting for its very survival. Meanwhile, scientists on Earth monitored the fight closely. They discovered that the enemy ship's biomechanical nature made them extremely resilient. When one was damaged, its cells rapidly regenerated. It was as if they were alive. But through careful analysis, the scientists found weaknesses in their core structures. Concentrated fire, especially from the new orbital cannons, could disrupt their regeneration, causing massive chain reactions. This insight changed the tide of battle. As the enemy pressed forward, the United Earth Fleet deployed its secret weapons. Orbital cannons, hidden for decades, fired streams of plasma and concentrated energy at the enemy lines. Massive star carriers unleashed waves of smaller attack drones, designed specifically to overwhelm the biomechanical vessels. The AI-guided systems coordinated attacks with inhuman speed, predicting enemy maneuvers before they even occurred. Slowly, the biomechanical fleet began to lose ground. Explosions sent fragments of the enemy ships tumbling into space, a spectacle both terrifying and mesmerizing. Despite these successes, losses on the human side were severe. Thousands of soldiers and pilots gave their lives in the early hours of battle. Starfighters exploded in brilliant flashes, and larger ships were torn apart despite advanced shields. Each sacrifice was felt deeply, but it fueled the resolve of those who remained. Every human vessel destroyed became a symbol of resistance, a reminder that Earth would not surrender. On Earth, the public followed the battle in awe and fear. Governments decided to broadcast updates carefully, showing glimpses of human strength without revealing the full scale of destruction. People watched as humanity's full military might was revealed for the first time, understanding that the peaceful world they had known had transformed into something far greater, united, and capable. Children who had only learned about space in textbooks now saw real war unfold among the stars. Families whispered prayers and hopes, clinging to every signal from the fleets above. As the battle progressed, the enemy realized that brute force alone would not work. Their tactics changed, becoming more aggressive and calculated. Enormous ships attempted to breach the outer defense ring simultaneously, testing every weak point. Human commanders responded quickly, redirecting energy shields, concentrating fire on the most threatening ships, and deploying reserve fleets strategically. The fight became a high-speed chess game, where every decision could mean life or death for thousands. In the middle of the chaos, Project Aegis demonstrated its true power. Argus, the AI at the center of Earth's defense system, analyzed enemy movements and predicted attacks with incredible accuracy. Ships that might have been destroyed were redirected milliseconds before impact. Enemy boarding drones designed to infiltrate human vessels were neutralized before they could breach the hull. Argus even calculated counterattacks that humans alone could not have devised. Humanity was no longer reacting blindly. It was thinking faster, fighting smarter, and pushing back with precision. The turning point came when the fleet managed to concentrate fire on the enemy's main formation. A massive black ship, larger than anything in the fleet, was struck by a coordinated barrage from multiple star carriers and orbital cannons. The explosion was spectacular, sending shards of metal spinning through space, some hitting nearby enemy ships and causing a cascading destruction. For the first time, the biomechanical fleet faltered. Human forces cheered in the control rooms across the world, but there was no time to celebrate. The battle was far from over. Survivors from the destroyed colonies, now rescued by emergency human transports, were brought to orbiting stations. They witnessed the full scale of the battle and realized that Earth had become a planet prepared for war. Among them were engineers, scientists, and families who had once feared humanity could not defend them. Now they saw firsthand the incredible lengths Earth would go to protect its own. Their morale surged, and many volunteered to assist in any way they could. Throughout the engagement, communication remained critical. Human fleets coordinated in real time using encrypted channels, sharing sensor data, and adjusting tactics instantaneously. Pilots called out enemy maneuvers. Engineers repaired damaged ships at record speeds, and commanders adjusted strategy minute by minute. The enemy, despite its intelligence and speed, could not match the combined human effort, especially when guided by Argus. Hours turned into days. The enemy retreated, leaving behind debris and evidence of the immense struggle. Earth had survived the first full-scale attack, but at a heavy cost. Thousands of ships were destroyed, millions of energy cores expended, and countless lives lost. Still, humanity had proven something critical, that when united, Earth could defend itself against even the most powerful unknown force. The aftermath was both inspiring and sobering. Scientists studied the wreckage of the enemy ships, learning about their technology, their biomechanics, and their weaknesses. Military strategists analyzed every move, preparing for the inevitable next encounter. Humanity had glimpsed both the scale of the threat and its own potential. From this point forward, no one could underestimate Earth. In the sky, the scars of battle remained. Fragments of enemy ships drifted silently among the stars, a reminder of the conflict that had unfolded. But beneath those fragments, the fleet remained vigilant, repairing, refueling, and preparing for the next wave. Humanity had revealed its full strength, its unity, and its will to survive. The SOS from Vega 7 had sparked a chain of events that transformed Earth forever. The planet that once hid its power in secret now stood exposed and ready. a beacon of defiance and resilience in a galaxy that had underestimated it for too long. Even as the dust settled, one truth was clear: humanity had faced the unknown, had fought with everything it had, and had survived. But the war was far from over. The enemy had been pushed back, but it was still out there, learning, adapting, and preparing for the next confrontation. Earth had shown its hand, and the universe had taken notice. Humanity would not go quietly. It would fight, and it would protect its own, no matter the cost. When the smoke cleared from the first full-scale battle, Earth and its people finally had a moment to breathe. The United Earth Fleet had survived the initial onslaught of the biomechanical enemy, and the damage to the planet had been minimal compared to what could have been. Yet the victory came at a heavy cost. Thousands of soldiers had died, countless ships had been destroyed, and the scars of battle lingered in orbit and on the surface. Still, the survivors understood one truth: Earth had shown the galaxy its strength. Humanity was no longer a passive civilization hiding in a corner of the stars. It had awakened. Rescue operations began immediately. Ships were dispatched to recover survivors from destroyed colonies, and automated drones scanned the debris fields for any signs of life. The first reports were both heartbreaking and miraculous. On Vega 7, for example, around 8,000 people had survived in hidden underground shelters, shielded from the initial attack. Families were reunited after days of uncertainty, and for the first time since the SOS, relief and hope spread among the people. Every survivor had a story of courage, fear, and resilience. Children who had witnessed devastation now looked up at the Earth fleet and smiled for the first time in weeks. Back on Earth, governments worked tirelessly to stabilize society. After the shock of knowing the universe held such threats, the public had glimpsed only fragments of the battle. But rumors had spread quickly, and fear was rampant. Leaders used the victory to unite nations further, broadcasting messages of hope and determination. Schools taught children about the heroism of the fleet, emphasizing the idea that humanity, despite its flaws and divisions, could come together when truly needed. For many, it was a defining moment, a lesson that courage, unity, and intelligence could overcome even the most unimaginable odds. The scientists and engineers were busy too. Studying the remains of the enemy fleet revealed secrets that would shape humanity's future for decades. Biomechanical technology, previously alien and incomprehensible, was dissected and analyzed. Engineers discovered that the enemy ships could repair themselves using raw materials from destroyed colonies. They had learned from humanity's defenses and adapted to every tactic used against them. But there was a critical weakness. Concentrated and synchronized attacks on their central cores disrupted the regenerative systems. This knowledge became the cornerstone of Earth's future defense strategies. Every new ship built incorporated lessons learned from the first battle, making the next encounter less uncertain. On board the Horizon, Captain Elena Ruiz oversaw the fleet's return to base. Her crew was exhausted but resolute. Pilots who had flown countless sorties against the biomechanical enemy now shared stories of bravery and sacrifice. Lieutenant Ramirez spoke quietly to his team. Every ship we lost was not in vain. We've proven we can fight them and survive. Each member of the crew understood that their mission had changed the course of history. Humanity had fought not for conquest or exploration this time, but for survival, and it had won. Earth's military leaders also began preparing a message to the galaxy. The purpose was clear. This was no longer just a defensive war. Humanity needed to assert its presence and demonstrate that it would respond to threats without hesitation. Using advanced communication arrays, a broadcast was sent far beyond the solar system. It was a simple yet powerful declaration. We will answer every call for help. We are united. We are not prey. The message carried the weight of humanity's resolve. Every nation contributed to its tone, emphasizing cooperation, resilience, and the readiness to defend life wherever it might exist. Meanwhile, life on Earth slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy, but it was a different normal. Cities had been reminded of their vulnerability, and the awareness of the broader universe had changed humanity forever. Space exploration programs were accelerated, not for curiosity alone, but to secure human presence and to ensure that Earth would never again be caught unprepared. Colonies were reinforced with new technology, defense systems were strengthened, and supply lines became more robust. Humanity was transforming, not just as a species but as a civilization aware of its place in a hostile galaxy. The cultural impact was profound. Art, literature, and media began reflecting the struggle and triumph of the human race. Stories of bravery and sacrifice spread quickly, inspiring people of all ages. Songs were composed, movies filmed, and books written, recounting the tales of the fleet that had saved humanity from near annihilation. It became a shared memory, a story that belonged to everyone. Children learned about Vega 7 and the SOS that had changed everything, understanding that courage and unity were as important as technology and strategy. Despite the joy of victory, the threat was far from eliminated. Reconnaissance satellites detected distant, weak signals from the retreating enemy fleet. These ships were damaged but not destroyed, moving slowly out of human-controlled space. Scientists estimated they were repairing themselves and learning from the battle. Humanity now knew one undeniable fact. The war was not over. Earth had survived the first strike, but the enemy was intelligent, adaptive, and patient. Every human fleet, every defense system, and every new technology would be tested again in the future. Project Aegis, the initiative that had remained secret for decades, became a permanent fixture of Earth's defense. Argus, the AI that coordinated the fleet, continued to evolve, learning from the first engagement and preparing for future conflicts. Space stations were upgraded, orbital defenses expanded, and new fleets built with improved designs and weaponry. Humanity was no longer hiding behind planets. It was projecting strength into the stars, ready to face whatever came next. The human survivors carried stories of horror and hope. Families who had been trapped in shelters told tales of courage, quick thinking, and acts of kindness in the face of destruction. Engineers who had worked tirelessly to keep ships operational were celebrated as heroes. The fleet's pilots, who had risked everything in the chaos of battle, became symbols of the resilience and determination of humanity. In every city, memorials were erected, honoring those who had given their lives so others could survive. Even the young and untrained had contributed. Civilians volunteered to assist in logistics, repairs, and communication, understanding that the fight extended beyond the front lines. Their efforts ensured that Earth's military operations continued smoothly, and in the process, they learned the value of teamwork, sacrifice, and responsibility on a scale never seen before. Humanity had discovered that its greatest strength lay not just in technology or weapons, but in the collective will of its people. Through all of this, Earth also made contact with the colonies that had survived. The rescued populations were brought back into the fold, their knowledge of alien tactics, environments, and technology becoming invaluable. They helped rebuild infrastructure, shared insights from their harrowing experiences, and worked alongside scientists and engineers to develop strategies for future engagements. The SOS that had once been a desperate cry for help had now transformed into a foundation for humanity's resurgence. The victory inspired a new vision for the planet. Leaders from all nations recognized that Earth could no longer afford to be divided. The United Earth Council was strengthened, providing a permanent platform for global cooperation on defense, research, and space exploration. This unity ensured that humanity would be prepared not just for survival, but for establishing a presence in the wider galaxy. The SOS had shown Earth its vulnerability, but it had also revealed its potential. And then came the most profound moment. Humanity, which had once looked up at the stars with wonder and fear, now saw itself as a force to be reckoned with. Earth had revealed its full military power to protect life and to send a message to the universe. Humanity would defend itself, its colonies, and its future with unwavering determination. The SOS that had once signaled fear and desperation had become a symbol of resilience, courage, and unity. It had awakened Earth, forcing the planet and its people to confront the reality of the galaxy and rise to the challenge. In the end, Earth was changed forever. The battle had shown that humans could face the unimaginable and survive. It had brought nations together, inspired generations, and established a presence in space that could no longer be ignored. The SOS from Vega 7 was not just a cry for help. It was a turning point in human history. It had forced humanity to reveal its strength, to embrace unity, and to prepare for a future where the stars were no longer a distant dream, but a battlefield, a home, and a challenge to be met with courage. Even as peace returned temporarily, everyone knew that the galaxy had taken notice. The biomechanical enemy had retreated, but it was learning, observing, and adapting. Humanity had survived the first encounter, but the war was far from over. The SOS had revealed the power of Earth, and now the universe knew. Humanity would not be ignored, it would not be preyed upon, and it would fight for its own place among the stars. And in that knowledge, the people of Earth found strength, hope, and the determination to ensure that the next battle would be fought with the full might of a united planet, ready for whatever challenges the universe might throw at them.